Well, hello and welcome. Well, those Sydney racing fans would certainly be familiar with the name Cassidy. Of course, Jimmy, younger brother Larry, crossing the Tasman to take on the Australian jockeys. Jimmy, in his time in the saddle, clocked up over 100 Group 1 wins, two of them being Melbourne Cup wins, the first on Kiwi, and he followed up in '97 with Might and Power. Younger brother Larry, probably more famous for his combination with the great Kiwi mare Sunline. But did you also know Larry Cassidy was responsible for starting the wonderful 33 consecutive wins of the great mare Winx? He started it in 2015 in the Sunshine Coast Guineas. Unfortunately, a finger injury has put an end to Larry's riding career, so I caught up with him in his base in Brisbane during the week and asked him what lies ahead for the future of LV Cassidy. Larry, we've recently known that you've gone into retirement, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But throughout your career, I've got some stats here, and I've known you for a long time, so you can correct me if my stats aren't right. 2,847 wins, 40 of those at Group 1 level.
42.
There you go.
Yep.
See?
Yep. So there's two in Singapore, two Singapore days
right,
that you would
okay.
know.
Premiership winner of 1998, 99 and 2000.
Yes.
That's a pretty
In
impressive
Sydney.
record.
Plus, I drew the Brisbane Jockeys Premiership with the late Staffy Cassidy.
Yep.
In 2009, 2010, possibly it was.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
What an impressive record. You'd have to be very proud of that.
Yeah, I am. It's way more than I ever thought that I would ever achieve. I was always in Jimmy's shadow, but I think I broke out of that shadow and become my own person, which was very satisfying.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. Okay, your apprenticeship was in New Zealand. Was it always going to be that you were going to be a jockey because you had two elder brothers, Jimmy and Ricky, who were jockeys? And was it a foregone conclusion?
Yeah, I did, and I sort of had someone say, "Oh no, you'll never be a jockey," because I was probably a little bit chunkier. Wasn't fat, but I was a bit chunkier. Probably like I am now. And it just sort of made me more determined. And obviously, seeing Ricky ride and then Jimmy ride, how successful he was, and I just really wanted to follow on from there.
Sure.
And obviously, I had the height, and I was very light.
Yeah. So was Jimmy pretty much a mentor to you in the early days?
No. So Jimmy, obviously, Jimmy left home, when I was very, very young. And I just remember back in the days, Mum and Dad used to sneak us kids that were still at home to Wellington, Trentham's races, because they'd take us early, put us up in the back of the stands, because under 18 wasn't allowed on a racecourse back then. But of course, we wanted to go to see our brothers ride, and and it sort of all just, I suppose, carried on from there, and then it's really what I wanted to do.
Yep. So coming to Australia, I believe Jimmy was instrumental in getting you the ride in the George Main Stakes on Coronation Day. So that's probably the first time the Australian public really knew who Larry Cassidy was.
Yeah, I think so that was like
1992?
Yeah, mid-August or early September, the race. Yeah. I think I moved over about 2nd or 1st of August. I moved over, and I was able to, luckily enough, Jimmy was successful, and I was able to move in with Jimmy, and we were managed by Ron Dufficy, who was fantastic, and obviously Jimmy rode for the late Max Lees, and I was riding a few for him at the provincials, and very successful too, because Jimmy didn't really go to the provincials then, and then Jimmy, Coronation Day come along. Jimmy didn't have his weight. He was riding Rough Habit, and obviously, I got the opportunity to ride him and made the most of it.
Well, being a solid jockey, as you just described yourself, 49.5 kilos, I think the horse had on the day.
Yeah, so I still had to lose weight for it, but obviously I was a bit lighter back in those days.
Yep.
But through my whole career, I've always had to, I've always ridden the minimum, but always sort of struggled to do it. But did it in the right way, being fit, and not so much taking weight off in saunas.
And were you confident going into the race?
Well, I was probably a bit nervous, because it was I suppose it was a good test for me. It was maybe a make or break. If I suppose if I slaughtered it, I'd probably be back to the provincials. But I gave him a really good ride. I remember I come up the rise and I had Rough Habit outside me, and I just edged Jimmy out of the way, burst into the clear, and here's one of my other idols, hit the front on Kinjite, Mick Dittman. So obviously Jimmy was one of my idols, and Mick Dittman was one of my idols growing up. Wanted to be like both of them combined, and sort of forged to him, and me and him fought it out, and I got the upper hand with obviously the lighter weight. I'm putting it to the lighter weight. I'm not saying I outrode back.
Well, I'm sure you did on the day.
I do have 4 or 5 Group 1 photos, and Mick's run second on all of them.
Well, let's look at a few of them Group 1s. Ivory Irish in the AJC Derby.
Yep.
Sunline and Secret Savings in the Doncaster. Sunline in the Flight Stakes, Warwick Stakes. Victoria Derby on Arena.
Yep.
Sydney Cup on Linesman. Epsom on Desert War. I mean, they're only a few. I mean, there's probably plenty more. You know, that's an outstanding list of Group 1 wins. Sunline, I've got to ask you about. Okay, so was Sunline the horse that you had to give up to take on the Crown Lodge job?
Well, I was always pretty much their number 1 rider at the time, and getting, you know, pretty much the choice of their rides. But obviously, I'd won on Sunline. I'd won on her in the early part of the previous season. Gone to New Zealand to ride her first up. Then she came over, and I rode her at Caulfield. Got beat on her just in the shadows of the post. And then obviously Trevor McKee said we're going to run a fortnight at Flemington, and I said I'd love to come back down and ride her, and I was all booked for her. And then told the Hawk stable that, you know, Ron Duffy rang and said that I was riding down there just to let them know, so they weren't mucked around for riders. And then I got a phone call the Sunday before the races, and it was Jack Ingham, and he said, "Larry," he said, "I hear you're going to Flemington Saturday." I said, "Yes, Mr. Ingham." I said, "I'm going down to ride that mare. I think she's pretty good." And he said, "No problem." He said, "Call me back in 5 minutes." He said, "She's 1 horse. We have 1,000." And so obviously I sort of weighed up at the time, and I thought the right choice was to stick by Ingham's, but maybe the 1 horse might have been better than the 1,000, but that's life. I did win 3 premierships and more Group 1s. I did win a Group 1 race that day by staying in Sydney.
Yes.
I won the Canterbury Guineas, which was actually weirdly held at Rose Hill that year, on Arena.
Yep.
Then I did win a VRC Derby on Arena as well. So, look, it evens itself out.
Well, in hindsight, I think you obviously made the best choice. I mean, there was 1 horse, and as we all know, horses can go amiss at any stage in the career, and who's to say that you would have chosen Sunline and she would have gone amiss the next week? Exactly.
So Greg obviously then rode her and won on her, and then I actually won a Doncaster on her after that. Now, they then said that Greg rides her in in Melbourne, and I ride her in Sydney. I ran 4th in the Epsom on her, and then Greg won the Cox Plate on her, and then that was pretty much it. But I feel very lucky to have had the ride. There is a big backstory about how I got the ride.
Right.
So I was driving home from Warwick Farm races, and my phone rang. It was an overseas number. The voice on the other end says, "Jimmy." I said, "No, it's Larry here." He said, "You'll do. Trevor McKee here." I said, "Hi, Trevor." He said, I've got a really good horse. I think it's the best horse I've ever had." And I said, "I'll ride it." He said, "You don't even know where I'm going." I said, "I don't care, I'll ride it, because I know he's had some champion horses, and if he thinks this is the best one he's had, I knew it would be good." And he just said, "I'm running that race and that race." And so I was pretty lucky to get the ride, ringing the wrong number, and that's how I got the ride. So,
did you tell Jimmy?
Yeah, not for a little while. He had plenty of good rides, Jimmy.
Now, speaking of best horses, I'm told that you had an incredibly high opinion of Unworldly.
Yeah. She was. She could have been anything. We never really got to see the best of her. I think she was 5 starts, 4 wins, and I'd won the Flight Stakes on her, like dead set in an absolute canter. And I was riding a track gallop to go down for the 1,000 guineas in Melbourne, and yeah, she did a sesamoid, and yeah, it was a horrific morning. Not only for me, but for the staff, and obviously for the horse too. We were going full gallop, and she just did it, and bang, she stopped straight away, and Warwick Farm, very narrow dirt track that you're galloping on, and several horses galloped past me, and I'm standing on the outside fence with my arms around her, and she just stood there.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really sad.
Oh, tragic moment.
Yeah, it was.
But you followed up Sunline with Unworldly, and the best horse probably you've thrown a leg over, and so has Bowman, McDonald, Collett and Berry in form of Winx.
Yeah.
What an incredible win. And I mean, if anyone has not seen the vision of the Sunshine Coast Guineas the day that you won on it's an unbelievable win.
Yeah, it is. It's probably up there with one of her, I'm not saying best wins as in her best race she won, but the way she did it, considering no one really knew who Winx was to become. And yeah, my instructions, she was favourite that day. I remember getting on her in the enclosure, and I had a pound saddle on her and a little bit of packing because she had a fairly light weight. And when I sat on her, I thought, oh God, you're a skinny. Jesus, I thought it just felt like I was sitting on a razor blade. I even said to the person leading around, I said, gee, she's a skinny thing. So obviously she hadn't filled out. And I remember cantering to the gates, like she just dropped away. She didn't have a stomach on her, and my legs were flapping like that. I couldn't keep them still. And anyway, so my instructions were just, I drew wide. I think I drew 16 of 18. Just go back, try to get somewhere close to the fence. It'd be nice if you could be midfield. Obviously that didn't pan out. I had to come back a bit further and sort of sat one off the fence back, second last. And I thought, when I got there, it goes through your head, I'm further back than I want. I knew it was a one ride. I knew it was one ride only. I thought, well, most jockeys probably wouldn't really care, and they'd, ride the ears off it and do probably something that you shouldn't be doing, and she's going to have a gut buster. I just thought, okay, I'm back here now. I was biding my time. I got to the 600 and they all started to take off in front of me. I thought, no, just wait. Wait till I get to the turn, come to the outside, try her, let her down, try her, and you're probably going to run a fourth or fifth, third maybe, and I haven't given you a gut buster. Knowing I'm not on her, at least then they've got a horse going forward. And that was my thought, and it all goes through your head very quickly. And so I turned for home, come to the outside, and I just started to let her pick her momentum up, and then I gave her one shove, and she changed legs and got on the side, and then just went bang. And I must have been 15 lengths off them, and I knew I had them. And it's just, I've never had that feeling before. And yeah, just an incredible win. I put 2 or 3 rounder flicks with the whip, but literally her momentum carried her past the line. I think I stopped riding at the 100. And her momentum was just carting her to the line. Yeah, really amazing, a great feeling. And
do people understand and realise in racing that you were the man that started the 33 consecutive wins of Winx?
I think a few people do. So my wife Michelle wasn't at the races, and as soon as I get in the car, I give her a call just to let her know that I'm on my way and not in trouble with the stewards. And she was really excited. What do you think? I said, she could be the best horse I've ever ridden. And she went, what? Like Sunline and Saintly, and she rattled off Desert War, like linesmen, like they're all, some of them were champions, Juggler, Lotteria, like some of them were champions and some were just outstanding horses. And I said, I know. I said, but no horse has ever given me that feel. I think she could be a champion one day. And rung my manager, he believed me, and then I was at the races for the Oaks Day, and Huey arrived, and went up to Huey. I said, oh, did you see her win at the coast? He said it was a pretty good win. He said, yeah, but she didn't beat much, like how Huey talks. He said, what do you think? I said, Huey, I think she could be the best horse I've ever ridden. He went, better than Sunline? I'm like, yeah, and I think one day she could be a champion. And he shrugged it off. Yeah. And, that story is retold in the movie. Yeah. Some people think I sort of just elaborated on it, but that's how it went out. So I'm quite proud of myself.
Absolutely.
Huey did ring me after the second Cox Plate. Yeah. And tell me, I think you're right. And I thought, geez, it took you long enough. Bloody hell. I was onto it.
But it's a great trivia question, and I often pose the question to people in racing, can you name the 5 jockeys that won on Winx, after Joe Morea was the last jockey to be beaten on Winx,
Yeah.
And it's a great trivia question. Of course, Hugh, we all know, rode for most of those wins. McDonald had a win, Jason Collett, Tommy Berry, and yourself. And you were the one that started it all.
Believe it or not, I've got the only signed cap signed by every jockey.
Is that
I've
right?
Never signed. I actually brought it in an auction. They said it's a signed cap by every jockey that has won on Winx.
On Winx.
And I went and had a look at it, and I went, no, it's not. And they said, why? I said, because my signature's not on it.
Yeah.
So I brought it, and I've got the only cap. And I've never signed another one.
Good one, mate. Yeah, great. That's great. So I'm assuming that you didn't get a spray from a trainer on Winx, but you might have got a few sprays from Hawks during the time. What some of the best ones you got?
Yeah, well, probably the best one, and well deserved, was Lease here at Eagle Farm in the Castlemaine Stakes, which is called now the
Is it the
it's a big
JJ
2-year-old,
Atkins?
AJ Atkins, yes, and deservedly, I deserved that one.
Yep.
Horse, I was back near the tail, and the horse sort of run a bit wide, left a gap for a horse and a half to go through, and of course, instead of me coming to the very outside, I went to go there, and then the gap closed. Run second to Mossman, and I copped the big blast that day. I thought there was steam coming out of his ears, but it was deserved. But there was a few there that wasn't.
Yeah, sure.
And I even had Peter Snowden come up. Peter was one of his foremans.
Yep.
Come up after one of the sprays and say, you didn't deserve that. And I got some that weren't deserved, but I certainly got some that were. Good on you, John.
So, Larry, like most jockeys, you've gone through your career and without some serious injuries, and they put you out for a long time, a back injury, and you've had knee problems. And now the latest injury that's curtailed your career, of course, is a finger injury, which is a bit unusual, I suppose. However, we do understand that jockeys ride with their hands, and your hands are a most important part of how you control the horse. So tell us a little bit about how it ended your career.
Yeah, well, the weird thing was, it started with my back injury. I was riding a horse at Doomben for Kevin Kemp, and I can't quite think of her name. She won 4 or 5 in a row on her, and not at this stage. And mid race, I'd sort of jumped, and I just turned my head just to make sure there's nothing inside me, and I felt something in my back go. And my back I had pains running up my arm, and at the 600, she got pulling, and I had no control, and I nearly put Jaden Lloyd through the running rail. And then I actually went on and won the race, and me trying to ride her out up the straight, like my arms were shooting with pain and my legs were, and literally had to be helped back into the jockey's room, helped onto the scales. Well, I think they gave me 3 weeks suspension. It didn't really matter because I knew I wasn't going to be able to ride anyway. And so I had my back patched up, physio and what have you, and I had one of my L4 disc was bulging out the side. And so I had it patched up, and I started riding again, and was riding really well, riding winners. And some days were good and some days were bad. And then one day at the trials, I was on Miss Hipster, going around having a trial, and all of a sudden the pain just shot through my back. My legs just went, I couldn't even control my legs. This was after I got off her, and I ruptured my L4 disc. So I got them to get me to my car so I could drive home. And literally when I got home, my legs just went, and it was like my legs were on fire. My wife called the ambulance. I'd spoken to a doctor the day before, and he'd looked at the scans and said, I seriously need an operation. So I rang him, and he said, I've got a back surgeon, mate. They gave me a call. Bang, straight away Tuesday, I was in the following Tuesday, had back surgery. They just literally cut the rupture off where it had ruptured and everything that was coming out the back. I was off for 6-7 weeks, started riding track work again, rode race day, I think Toowoomba Cup meeting, I rode a winner somewhere along the lines there, rode about 2 or 3 meetings. I was riding track work and a horse got a fright coming off the track, just reared up and then whipped around. I did my back again, I felt it go straight again. So, rang the surgeon, he said, come back in. I got a scan that morning, and he said, we can't do surgery again. He said, but we'll send you for a caudal epidural. So they go up through your tailbone. And my back was unbelievable, literally kills all the pain straight away. And I was riding work again, and my back, this is after another 6-7 weeks off, and my back felt amazing. I thought, okay, this is it, I'm good to go. And riding a gallop with Michael Rodd, and going on the bee grass, going full gallop as we hit the winning post, and these were young horses, and a lot of young horses, they hit the winning post and they tend to get quicker, and my horse done a U-turn, and I come off, and I must have landed with my elbow into my side.
Yeah.
And it's like getting your finger and going as hard as you can to a concrete wall, and it shattered through that joint and dislocated. And I just thought it was a broken finger, and I even said on my Facebook page, I broke my finger at track work this morning. They thought I ruptured my spleen because I had pain here, but that was fine. Be back in 6 weeks. And when I went and seen the specialist, he said, this is no ordinary break. He said, it's the worst possible break you could probably get. So he said, well, we'll operate, we'll put some pins and plates. And he said, but you have to sign a waiver because I may not be able to save it. I may have to chop it off. Weirdly enough, if he had chopped it off then, I'd probably still be riding now. But that wasn't the case. Had a lot of trouble. I had more than 100 physio appointments. The pain was horrendous. They had to re-operate and cut me all the way down into my hand to loosen the tendons that had adhered to the scar tissue because I couldn't bend it. I don't know if you can even see now, that's as far as I can bend it. Doesn't bend. The rest of my hand hurts too, so it sort of affected the rest of my hand. And I sort of just pleaded to work cover, just finish it, I need to get on with my life. I know I'm never going to ride again, so they sent me for to a doctor to assess it and then close the case, so that I can move on with my life,
Incredible, incredible.
To think, with all the injuries jockeys can have, and I've been in about 6 or 7 5-horse falls. Yeah. And it's a finger.
Well, that's what I said.
But it's important because your hand is your strength.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right, and that's what you steered, and you also feeling the horse through your hands as well.
Yep. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
But you would have, as I say, but with that record of so many wins and group races and good horses you've ridden, there wouldn't be much regret. And probably every jockey would love to have won a Melbourne Cup. Yeah. The closest you've been is a third or a fourth.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
So you've been around about, but not quite there.
Yeah.
But some of the good jockeys like Malcolm Johnston, Ron Quinton, Kevin Langby, they never won Melbourne Cups.
No. So, I think I had 13 or 14 rides, and even some jockeys. They say to win a Melbourne Cup, but I think it's a thrill to ride in it.
Absolutely.
And not every jockey gets that chance. So I think I've been pretty lucky and honoured to be able to have such a successful career. And like I was 54 I was 53 when the finger happened, and then I'm about to turn 55. So. Look, I think it was the right time. Absolutely. And like you say, I don't think I had anything more to prove.
No.
I was riding very good, so it was a bit disappointing because I'd just won the Glasshouse Stakes, and I was still getting good support from trainers that were really loyal to me. I was loyal to them, which is very unheard of these days. And I was probably enjoying riding more than what I had in previous years because I'd got my weight right and my weight was good. And I was really enjoying it.
It's like I say, with sports people, you always want that retirement on your terms, and this probably wasn't on your terms, which is a bit unfortunate.
It wasn't. But everyone's like, "Oh, stay positive, you'll get back riding." But jockeys know their bodies so well, and I knew that wasn't coming right, and I did everything I could for it, but I'd accepted it, which I think made the transition easier. Yep.
So what does the future hold for Larry Cassidy?
Well, I've always wanted to be, it's well known, documented, I've always wanted to be a steward. Probably, for the last 30 years, I've always wanted to be a steward. And I've just been lucky enough that I've been an all right jockey where I didn't have to be a steward. Straight away I looked at being a steward. Nothing really's come up. So I started... a jockey asked me if I could help him, Aidan Thompson, and he rides very good, Aidan, but a little bit messy. Yep. And I've really tidied him up. He looks total different jockey and riding with so much confidence. Had a lot of trouble getting suspended. He went 6 months without a suspension. Then he got 2 suspensions in a row. So I was showing them the tools of how to ride as well safely and still trying to win, but because you can't ride winners if you're suspended. So the main aim is to stay and play and ride safely, and your next aim is to win.
Of course.
A lot of them think their first aim is to win, and then that comes at all costs. And that's not how it should be, because that can become dangerous. And I had a couple riders like that, and I've just curbed their ways a bit, just saying, like if you have to deck one to get out, you could cause a fall. You're not riding, they're going to put someone else on it next start anyway. I said, be unlucky. I said, it doesn't matter. It's might sound wrong teaching kids this, but it is the right way to teach them, because a lot of them think it's win at all cost. And with how tight they ride these days, it's a very dangerous sport.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. So a number of young kids in the Queensland area are going to be thankful that you're on their side, and they've got a terrific mentor in yourself. So that's wonderful.
It gives me a great thrill too. Like I can do it all from home, and obviously I do the form for them and do the form as if I was riding the horse, but then also say, this is where I'd like to be, but also take into how the trainer wants you to ride it as well, but also just telling them to, when you make a choice, make it quick and stick by it. I said, it's not going to be the right one all the time, but if you can make it the right one 7 or 8 out of 10, I said, you're going to be a way better jockey. And seeing them improve, which all of them have significantly, but they all want to learn too, which is a big help. Like, it makes me feel really proud. And it gives me a hell of a thrill.
I bet it does.
And I can bet now, I've backed a couple of winners too.
Well, having watched a number of Queensland races over the last number of years, there's an awful lot of female riders, and they all ride good, don't they?
Yes, there are some very good female riders, and obviously, I think the jockeys' rooms have been made bigger.
They have,
and eventually, I suppose the girls will move into the men's jockeys' rooms. But there are some good female riders up here, strong female riders too. Well, I suppose like there is in Sydney as well, and Melbourne.
Now the kids, Larry, they haven't followed you into racing.
No,
they've formed careers in other areas, a bit like my kids too.
Yes, my children were always really little. Like I was when I was younger. But my son was always really tiny, and then he just exploded. Like, he's 6 foot. He's taken to my wife's side of the family. All the males on their side are really tall, but he's a doctor. He was living in Sydney. He was working at Westmead Hospital. He'd done all his rotations down there, and he's finally moved back to Queensland earlier this year. So he's just looking to get into a training program to specialise in something, but because he was in Sydney, he couldn't get into a training program here. So he's just doing a bit of work with they call it HIH. I think it's HIH. It's what it stands for. It's like Doctors at Home.
But how proud are you and Michelle?
Oh, amazing. And my father-in-law, who was a doctor, is extremely proud too.
That's wonderful.
Amazing.
Larry. That's fantastic.
And my daughter, she's 21. She's still living at home, but she is the manager of coordinating the volunteers at Guide Dogs Australia.
Okay.
So she loves her job.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, Larry, it's been great catching up with you.
Thank you.
I'm sure whatever you set your mind to in the future, you'll be a success at, as you were as a jockey in the saddle. Larry, Cassidy, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Steve.